The lecture hall of the Galactic Archaeological Institute stretched 300 meters in diameter, its curved walls displaying holographic reconstructions of artifacts from civilizations that had turned to dust millennia before most species had discovered fire. Commander Jakar, a Velkari with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, stood at the center podium, her forearms gesturing gracefully as she spoke. "And here," she announced, her voice carrying through the translation matrix, "we have the crown jewel of our collection, the Precursor Mark VII combat exosuit." The hologram materialized above the assembly, a towering suit of armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Gasps rippled through the audience of 200 cadets, from 47 different species. Even the usually stoic Crethians leaned forward in their seats. Lisa Martinez sat in the back row, her human frame dwarfed by the crystalline bulk of a Schwan on one side and the chitinous mass of a Vorlax on the other. Her fingers danced across her datapad, taking notes with the practiced efficiency of someone who had learned early that humans had to work twice as hard to earn half the respect in the galactic community. "The Precursors," Commander Jakar continued, "were the undisputed masters of defensive technology. This armor could withstand plasma bursts that would vaporize a modern cruiser. Its energy shielding operated on principles we still cannot fully comprehend. The alloy composition defies our most advanced metallurgical analysis." Oliver Chen, sitting 2 rows ahead of Lisa, raised his hand. The commander's eyes, all 6 of them, swiveled toward him, with barely concealed irritation. Humans were the newest addition to the galactic community, barely 3 decades into their membership, and some of the older species still viewed them as upstart children playing with technology they didn't understand. "Yes, Cadet Chen. How did they handle thermal regulation?" Oliver asked, his tone genuinely curious. Commander Jakar's scales rippled with what might have been amusement or annoyance. Lisa had never quite learned to tell the difference. "An excellent question. The Precursors utilized a revolutionary heat distribution network throughout the armor's structure. Completely sealed system. No external venting required." Oliver nodded slowly, but Lisa caught the slight quirk of his eyebrow, the one he always made when he was thinking something he probably shouldn't say out loud. "The suit's life support systems," the commander continued, warming to her subject, "could sustain its wearer for up to 6 standard months, without resupply. The recycling efficiency was 99.7%. Even by today's standards, we struggle to achieve such perfection. Mine had better ventilation." The words were barely audible, meant only for the cadet next to him, but in the acoustic design of the lecture hall, sound carried in unexpected ways. The Crethian 3 seats down stiffened. The Schwan beside Lisa let out a harmonic tone that translated as confused shock. Commander Zeshkar's scales flushed from black to deep crimson. "Excuse me, Cadet Chen? Would you care to share your comment with the entire assembly?" The lecture hall fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes and various other sensory organs fixed on Oliver. Lisa closed her eyes, knowing exactly where this was going. She'd served with Oliver for 2 years now, ever since their assignment to the Joint Galactic Defense Force training program. The man had a pathological inability to let incorrect information stand unchallenged. Oliver stood, his movements fluid despite the heavy gravity of the station. "I said, Commander, that mine had better ventilation. The armor. I mean, your armor?" Commander Jakar descended from the podium, her full 3-meter height on display. "You, a human cadet barely out of basic training, are claiming to possess armor superior to Precursor technology." "No, ma'am. I'm claiming to have worn armor with superior ventilation to Precursor technology." Oliver's voice remained calm, respectful, but firm. The Mark VII design philosophy prioritized perfect environmental sealing above all else. But during my stint in the Kandahar Desert, I wore ceramic composite armor plates in 130-degree heat. We learned real quick that sealed systems have critical vulnerabilities. A murmur rippled through the assembled cadets. The Velkari commander's scales shifted through several colors Lisa couldn't identify. "The human militaries. Oliver continued, gathering momentum. Figured out, around the 21st century, that you need strategic ventilation points. Not for comfort, though that helps, but because sealed systems create predictable failure points. Sweat accumulation leads to rashes, infections, reduced combat efficiency. The precursors might have had perfect recycling, but I guarantee you that after 3 months in that suit, the operator was dealing with skin breakdown and sensory impairment from moisture accumulation. Preposterous, Commander Jakar hissed. The precursors conquered half the galaxy, and then they disappeared. Lisa heard herself saying. Every head turned toward her. She stood slowly, her heart hammering. We studied the recovered remains. Commander, the archaeological reports mention skeletal evidence of chronic dermatological conditions. We attributed it to environmental factors. But what if Cadet Chen is right? Oliver shot her a grateful look. They'd pulled an all-nighter reviewing those very reports last week, arguing over coffee about the practical applications of ancient technology versus battlefield-tested modern design. Commander Jakar was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had lost some of its edge. You're suggesting that humanity, despite having spacefaring capability for barely a century, has insights that eluded the precursors? No, ma'am, Oliver replied. I'm suggesting that humanity has different insights. The precursors built for perfection. We built for survival. Sometimes, the scrappy solution beats the elegant one. The commander returned to her podium, her scales gradually shifting back to their neutral black. Tell me, Cadet Chen, what would you change about the Mark 7 design? Oliver pulled out his datapad, and Lisa watched as he sketched quickly, his fingers flying across the screen. Strategic mesh panels here, here, and here. Wicking material against the skin layer. A moisture collection and rapid redistribution system, not recycling for water supply, but moving it away from the skin to evaporation points. You'd lose maybe 0.2% of your environmental seal integrity, but you'd gain a soldier who could fight effectively for those full 6 months, instead of spending the last 3 miserable and compromised. The commander studied the design floating in holographic space. The lecture hall remained absolutely silent. The human concept of good enough engineering, she finally said. And this time, her tone held something like respect, maybe more sophisticated than we credited. Cadet Martinez, I believe you co-authored a paper on precursor remains analysis? Yes, ma'am, Lisa confirmed, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. I want both of you in my office after this lecture. We're going to review every precursor artifact in our collection, and you're going to tell me what else we've been missing. As the commander resumed her lecture, Oliver caught Lisa's eye across the rows of seats and grinned. She shook her head, fighting her own smile. Humans hadn't built the fastest ships or the strongest weapons. They'd simply survived longer and meaner than anyone had a right to, learning lessons in blood and sand that the greatest civilizations had never considered. Sometimes, Lisa thought as she returned to her notes, better ventilation was exactly the advantage you needed.